All right, now to our first conversation. According to the Nigeria Multidimensional Poverty Index 2022 survey, there are high deprivations in sanitation, time to healthcare, food insecurity, and housing deficits. Also, poor people are said to experience over 1/4 of all possible deprivations. And there are calls for action if Nigeria is to achieve the targeted sustainable development goals for national development. But let's talk about it from a sub-national level. Let's talk to Sholakwe Hammond, now Special Advisor to Lagos State Governor on SDGs and investments. Join us via Zoom. Great to have you on the program.
Thank you. Wish I could be there this morning, but thanks for having me.
No, it's fine. Seeing how the traffic is so bad with all the field queues we have out there, we'll just settle for this. But great to have you. Looking at that multidimensional poverty report, there are 133 million Nigerians. It's a big number, and it's making the SDGs, you know, getting those goals look more like a mirage. How are you seeing it?
So, of course, it's certainly a cause for concern, and it's really not entirely unexpected. I think the entire world is probably doing a lot poorer on this in terms of indeed regressing, not making progress, given what has happened in the last few years. We've had COVID, we've had local and global recessions, we have the tensions in Europe. It's entirely possible that we haven't even completely started to feel the after effects of that, or some of the shock effects of that. And so it's been a very challenging environment. But again, you know, we're very optimistic. We never entirely lose hope. For us, it's really a call to action. And when you look beneath the hood and look at sort of the layers under it, it's clear that there are actions that are being taken that are the steps in the right direction, even if we're not entirely seeing all the results. So, for example, if we break down the multidimensional poverty index results, if we look at things like neonatal mortality, for Lagos, that was 50 deaths per 1,000 children born in Lagos in 2017 when the initial report came out. In this last report, it was 15 deaths. Of course, you still don't want to lose any children, but it's shown that there is progress, and there's a reason behind that progress, and that's why we can be optimistic. It's not entirely by chance. It's the investments in mother and child care facilities, which we've seen have really made a difference. There can be specialists there, they're closer to the people, and they're focused entirely on ensuring that we address that challenge with neonatal mortality and maternal mortality. So we've gone from 2 of those in Lagos in 2019 when this administration came into 10. We're revamping the general hospitals. We've put in place the state health insurance scheme, and we're really happy to see the federal government getting behind that and really encouraging that state schemes should be supported. Lagos now has over 650,000 people put on it. And we also have free healthcare, free health insurance for the poor and vulnerable. What we're doing with all of that is systematically improving the healthcare system, going from when you couldn't even trust the primary healthcare centers, and you had 70% of the cases in the tertiary institutions being things like malaria and other things that should be handled at primary healthcare center, where you had to pay cash if you went to a private facility, to the situation now where we're beginning to see that insurance take shape. The capitation that's then required to run both public and private facilities come in. We actually have a total of 250 public and private institutions now on the state health insurance. So when you start to see an improvement in healthcare, standardization of healthcare, and a drive to bringing people into healthcare, then you start to see those results. And that's why we can see those numbers improving. So there are numbers that, of course, did not improve. There were some that actually regressed. I think we actually increased the rate of stunting by 1% in Lagos. But by and large, with most of those markers, Lagos improved because of systematic solutions to those things. If you look in the education sector as well, I think a lot of people are already familiar with what's been going on with public schools. The EcoExcel technology-enabled learning system that we have now deployed at the primary school level, the revolutions that are happening in e-learning, teacher training, all those inputs, the softer things, you may not hear about them the way you hear about the launch of a road, but they're things we're systematically doing, and we're seeing outcomes. So the performance of public school children in secondary school at WAEC, with 5 credits, 1 in English, 1 in math, 5 credits including English and math, went from 39% in 2020 to 78% in 2021. That's a 2-year change, a leap, a doubling in 2 years. If you have 5 credits with either math or English, it was actually at above %. So we're seeing outcomes, we're tracking them, and we're seeing the systematic response, or the results that are coming as a result of those systematic improvements. So there's still a pathway to progress.
Talking about tracking them, how easy or hard is it to, measure the progress?
So it takes a lot, and you will see it's happening at very different levels. So we have the Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget and the Lagos Bureau of Statistics. Lagos was one of the first subnationals to set up a Bureau of Statistics. And we actually have our own household survey that looked at 20,000 households, and we track that information. We also have a digital cabinet in place, which many people may not be aware of. The themes agenda that was crafted by Mr. Governor had KPIs that were developed. So that's performances that were developed during the transition committee and are tracked monthly across the entire state. So we have a cabinet digital software that shows us where we are on each of those markers for each of the themes outcomes. So everything from how much bitumen we have that we're producing that enables us to do the roads. People don't understand that you have to look at some of these leading indicators. If you don't have some of these things, you can't even get the outcomes that you're looking for. So it's not very easy, but those investments have to be made. We're also very excited that Lagos, as I mentioned, we're part of the multidimensional index. We're tracking those indices, working with the Human Capital National Core Working Group. We actually held a regional summit last week where we've posted the Southwest states, and we looked at this and we came up with strategies to work. And then Lagos is also doing something called a voluntary local review. We've started that process. We're looking to conclude by the first quarter of next year, supported by the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on SDGs, Princess Orilokwe, and the UNDP, to develop our own first voluntary local review that will look at all the work that's being done across the SDGs and actually give us data for as many of those indicators that are relevant to the state. There are about 161 of them that we'll be tracking. And so we're very, very focused because we know what you don't measure, you can't manage.
Right. Well, looking at where we are now, obviously, to achieve these goals, you need investments. How do you think, states can attract, more investments at this time?
And for us, it's actually been a very interesting story. Overall FDI, overall foreign direct investment has dropped to Africa since the advent of COVID. It actually shrank to about half in Nigeria from 2019 to 2020. It went back up a little bit last year, and it's been kind of middling a bit this year. But for us in Lagos, we've consistently been between 75% and 86% of those investments. And the reason is this. First, the market is here, and we're providing the enabling environment to support, but also catalytically seeking those investments. So what we've done in Lagos was we created something called a deal book. We identified 10 sectors that were investable, and we helped investors to understand what they were. So agriculture, transportation, healthcare, real estate, which is huge in Lagos, commerce, the industrial hubs, and technology, all the spaces that are of critical relevance for Lagos. And you can see quite a few of them are also enshrined in the 30-year Lagos development plan that we've developed. And we gave an interesting overview because not everyone's been to Nigeria before. And this is not just for foreign investors, but for local as well. And then we detailed specific investment opportunities. So look at things like the rail lines. Many people are hearing about the blue line, which we've been trying to build for 10 years, which we will now complete by the end of this year and start testing. So we're very excited about that. And the red line, which we're working with federal government on to then start testing on in January. But some are not aware that there are actually 6 lines planned. And there's a lot of interest now in the green line, which will be all the way from the Lekki Free Zone and Ekwe back also into Marina to join the interchange for the red and the blue line. So from those 3 parts of the state you can connect. That's in the deal book. The power for that is in the deal book. The Lekki Free Zone itself, the Badagry Port, the commercial and industrial estates all over Lagos, the logistics and market hub which we're building, which is the first of its kind in Africa. So many investment opportunities, the healthcare investment opportunities. We recently, I think middle of the year, completed a process to convert the old nursing hostel facility on Aolo Road in Ikoyi into a medical park as a private public partnership arrangement. We're talking about the 4th mainland bridge. All of those things are detailed in the deal book. So it makes it easy for people to come and invest. We've also put that deal book essentially online. If you go to our website, LagosSDGsandinvestment.com, you will then be able to go and see sector by sector possible investment opportunities and contact us. And we, as the facilitators for Lagos, will then handhold you to work with the various ministries and the Office of PPP to deliver on these investments.
But
so that's what we've done in Lagos. We've also gone out.
Yeah, how are investors reacting to these investment opportunities? With that FX risk, that's also a big problem for investors.
So the foreign policy or the foreign exchange regime has, to be honest, been a bit challenging. We've seen some of the constraints that they've had in the aviation industry. We've seen some of the constraints that manufacturers are having. But the truth is, every investment environment has its own unique challenges. And there are things in place to sort of help to manage those challenges. For Lagos, pragmatically at this point, you want investors who understand Africa, who understand Lagos, who understand that there are some of these challenges which we can help them work through, but who ultimately understand that it is important to be here. Lagos is going to be the economic hub of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We're not going to just be a market, we're going to be an export hub. And in spite of those environments, we're seeing not just new people interested in coming here, we're seeing existing investors bring in more money. We have investors, manufacturers in the food and beverage space who are now looking to make Lagos their regional hub. They're inflowing money here. So it may be challenging, but there are ways that working together with us, working together with federal government, with the support of the central bank, you can weather those challenges just as you do in any other investment program.
All right, let's look at MSMEs right now. It's getting more expensive, to do a business right now. We're seeing rising energy costs, rising costs of actually doing business. How can we, make this goal a reality with this stark realities facing, business owners right now?
So that's been an area that we've paid particular attention to and try to address each of their problems. So from a funding perspective and business support, just the technical support of how to successfully run a business, Lagos State Employment Trust Fund has been providing some support in that regard. From where can they operate from, we actually have something that's very exciting that's happening in our Lekki Free Zone, because we realize we can't make it just a zone for large corporate. We have to help the small and medium enterprises win this continental free trade agreement, this single market game. We want to support our MSMEs to actually become big companies. And so in the Lekki Free Zone, we're actually building something called standard factories that enables them to take small spaces and be able to also benefit from the value that you see when you're manufacturing in the free zone. So you get quick and easy clearing and shipping, you get some duty waivers, some tax rebates and things like that. And so we have an event, an investment breakfast event actually on the 13th of December. So for interested MSMEs, it'll be good for you to be there or at least join us online so that you can understand some of these offerings. We're also running something called a franchise framework development initiative, where we're targeting working with 300 MSMEs in Lagos in areas that are easy to franchise. So things like food and beverage, healthcare, services, the traditional areas where you have cosmetics, where you have franchises work. We're working with them to develop their own franchising model so that they can expand beyond the one location that we typically have in our small businesses in Lagos, across the state, across the country, across the continent, and even globally. And we're going to be supporting 20 of them to actually extend to create 10 franchises in the space of 2 years. So there's a lot that's very exciting that's happening in Lagos for small and medium businesses. We conducted a policy audit last year where we looked at the policy environment and we started to address some of the issues that are peculiar to MSMEs. So, Lagos is very friendly to MSMEs. We think they're the engine room of growth, then the engine room for job creation, and we think it's extremely important to support them, not just with funding, but with the right environment.
And the million-dollar question there, how do we reduce inequality?
So you reduce inequality by creating jobs, by providing skills, by training, and by providing them enablement, giving people a voice and understanding their environment. So part of what we'll be doing when we conduct this voluntary local review is going into we've picked out 6 blighted areas. 6 areas have what sometimes are referred to as slum communities, and we'll take those people and work with them. So sometimes people think Makoko, an area like Makoko, is an environmental issue. Sometimes it's not an environmental issue. Sometimes it's an economic issue. If you work with them and help them improve the economics of what they're doing, so they're traditionally fisher people. If you help them provide methods for preserving and storing and selling their products. We heard recently of I think 2 young brothers who worked with their parents who live in Makoko, original fisher people. and they helped them build an app to sell their fish. And they went and they quadrupled their sales. When you do that, you provide them the economic wherewithal to be able to improve their environment. If we wanted to build homes for everyone who's in a slum community or who's poor in Lagos, we just couldn't afford to do it. No one can, especially with the rate of migration into Lagos. But if you support them to learn the skills and trade, to pull themselves out, and then they're able to improve their economics, they'll then be able to make better decisions and make those investments themselves. So the answer to inequality is job creation and providing the skills and wherewithal for them to be able to then boost themselves out of poverty.
All right, so much to do there. 133 million, big number. Be great to take one step at a time to reduce that number. But thank you so much. That was Sholakwe Hammond, SA to the Lagos State Governor on SDGs and investments. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.